pick, which she will be announcing winners for when she is delivering her address. Our 5 categories are most inspiring entry, selfie frame challenge, which is most creative, best engagement post, of course, the CEO's pick, snap and scan, and squad goal entry, which is the best group entry. Are you ready? Are your phones fully charged? We have not forgotten our logins to our socials. If you're good, I hear they're very good prices. And I know SAICA on a personal level because, you know, I've been rolling with SAICA. When they come to play, they play well. There are those kids, elokishini kuthiwa ibhola yabo. So make sure. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to acknowledge in our presence Prof. Maggie Lennington, who is the DVC Teaching and Learning, in absentia, Professor Roshila Nolundisonga, who is the VC and Principal at Walter Sisulu University, Mrs. Patricia Stock, who is the CEO at SAICA, Ms. Pondo Bello, Marketing Executive at SAICA, Professor Manoj Panika, who is our Executive Dean for the Faculty of Economic and Financial Sciences, Dr. Stofile, Deputy Executive Dean for the Faculty of Economics and Financial Sciences, Mr. Senzo Ndlangamandla, Head of Department, Accounting Sciences. I didn't want to say make some noise because he's my personal friend. So I didn't want it to seem like dinedolo. Senior management present, heads of departments, colleagues, students, a very warm welcome. It's a great honor to welcome you to today's public lecture, which is centered on the timely and transformative theme, sustainability through the convergence of human, environmental, and digital capitals. As we gather to reflect on building a more sustainable future, we do so at a time that is itself historic, a moment that powerfully reflects the very transformation we seek to promote in our institutions and in our society. Today, we are privileged to host a remarkable keynote speaker, a trailblazer in her own right, who recently made history by becoming the first female CEO of her organization at SAICA. Even more significantly, this public lecture marks her first in that capacity. Please join me in acknowledging this moment of leadership, progress, and possibility. Her journey and her presence here today resonates deeply with us at Walter Sisulu University, because in 2021, our university also reached a significant milestone by appointing its first female vice-chancellor, Professor Songa. This is a decision that affirmed our own commitment to equity, inclusion, and institutional transformation. The stories of these two pioneering leaders and the institutions they represent are not separate. They are part of a shared and ongoing agenda to break barriers, uplift diverse voices, and reimagine leadership for the 21st century. Today's theme challenges us to think beyond traditional boundaries, to consider how human talent environmental stewardship, and digital innovation can come together to drive sustainable development. What we're exploring today is not just how these capitals function in isolation, but rather how their convergence can shape a more sustainable, inclusive, and resilient future. When we empower people, when we protect the planet, and harness technology responsibly, we build systems that are not only efficient, but also that are just and enduring. Let us begin with our program. Ladies and gentlemen, as we kickstart our program this morning, allow me to invite Professor Maggie Lennington on the podium to welcome us and possibly set the tone for today's proceedings. Prof. Maggie.
Thank you, Program Director. Moweni. Good morning, esteemed guests, especially from SAICA and our main speaker, CEO Ms. Patricia Stock, and other external stakeholders, the Executive Dean, Deputy Executive Dean, HODs, especially the HOD of Accounting Science, faculty, dedicated students, researchers and thought leaders. We are delighted to welcome you, all protocol observed. Let me welcome, I hope my welcome address will be warm, although it's a miserable day. And I thought, since it's raining outside, we might as well look at a quote which I thought was appropriate for today. Life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass, it's about learning to dance in the rain. So hopefully today, we are dancing in the rain. It's a great honor to welcome you to this important dialogue. Sustainability through the convergence of human, environmental, and digital capitals. A theme that speaks directly to the mission of Water Sisulu, higher education, and the country in the 21st century. Universities have always been engines of knowledge, innovation, and social transformation. Today, that role is even more critical than ever before, as the rate of change increases all the time. 10 years ago, technology knowledge and computers were out of date in approximately 2 years. Now the change in knowledge and the change in technology is less than 18 months. In fact, it's getting closer to 1 year. Furthermore, we are living in a time of profound global challenges: climate instability and climate change, social inequality and gender inequality, and if I may say, continental north-south inequalities, and a rapid technological change. But we are also living in a time of extraordinary opportunity. Let's look at human capital. At the heart of every university, our students, educators, and researchers, we are the architects of tomorrow. Our students become the implementers of tomorrow. Yet in 2025, 40% of the global workforce still lacks access to digital skills and skills training. And this is where we as universities must lead through the faculty as well as through the students by cultivating ethical, interdisciplinary, and systems-level thinking, which must be inclusive of diversity, equity, and sustainability. If we do not address diversity, equity, and sustainability, which is the theme of the G20 summit this year, then we will not achieve any change in our human capital. Next, environmental capital. The science is clear. Global carbon dioxide emissions hit a record high in 2024. In fact, it was the warmest year on Earth, and we reached the critical line of 1.5 degrees higher than our starting point where we started measuring. Climate-related disasters cost $300 billion, so that's something like 3 million billion rands last year. Universities are uniquely positioned to respond, not just through research, but by modeling sustainability in campus operations, curriculum, and community engagement. Digital capital. In 2025, currently, 70% of global companies are investing in artificial intelligence and digital tools to meet sustainability goals. But interesting, only 35% have governance frameworks to ensure that these are used responsibly. And this is a call to action from us to shape the ethical foundations of digital transformation and to ensure that technology serves humanity and the planet, and not the other way around. We don't want to start or become players in a real version of the movie Transformers. But the real breakthrough will come in the convergence of these three capitals. Imagine a university and a society where climate science is integrated with data science, where engineering students collaborate with social scientists to design equitable smart cities, where digital platforms extend to sustainable education across the country, across this continent, where every research project, every innovation, every graduate contributes to more than just to a more just and resilient and sustainable world. This is not a distant vision. It's already happening in living labs, in interdisciplinary programs and student-led initiatives. But it must be accelerated, and we must bring it to the heart of Water Sisulu, and so we can scale it together, and we can scale it in collaboration with others. So I'm hoping today we can ask bold questions, that we can challenge disciplinary silos, and we can forge new partnerships between academia, industry, government, and civil society. Because the future of sustainability is not about what we know, it's about how we connect with each other with what we know, and how we enable others and ourselves to act on this connection. I look forward to this address. I must thank SAICA for creating this much-needed opportunity. I hope today takes us one more step along this journey. Thank you, Nkosi.
Thank you, Prof. Ngathi niyagodola. Niyagodola? Singenza njani uba sibe right? Nifuna uwina? Hayi andiniva. It doesn't sound like you are saying we are uploading these pictures. We are tagging SAICA ZA on all of these platforms. I'm not hearing you say that. I'm not hearing you say, hey, program director, in celebration of Africa Month, you've nailed it. You know, I came here with my beads, traditional beads. Anithethe into. Thank you so much, Professor Lennington, for those words. This is such an opportune moment for our students as the classroom meets the boardroom. And this is a demonstration of what an accounting science qualification coupled with hard work and dedication can take you, right? So maybe to demonstrate this, we call upon Ms. Khanya Singxi, who's going to be offering a message of support to our CEO, Mphamandla.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Kanya Singli, a fourth-year student that is doing a Bachelor of Accounting Science. So on behalf of Walter Sisulu University students in the Faculty of Economic and Financial Science, we are so grateful that you came here to deliver your first ever public lecture with us. So, as a first female CEO of SAICA, your achievement is truly inspiring to us. Your leadership and your vision for SAICA, it gives us confidence that you will drive a positive change in the accounting profession. So, as a female myself, I am truly inspired by your journey and your accomplishments. So, as the students that are pursuing the SAICA accredited course, we are facing several challenges, but mostly it's the financial constraints that makes it challenging for us to buy the SAICA accredited textbook, especially the third year and the fourth year students that are doing Bachelor of Accounting. So, it will be a great honor if we were to have bursaries that's gonna provide us with the financial assistance to buy those textbooks. So another challenge that I think we're facing is that there are no residences here in Water universities that are SAICA accredited. So mostly you'd find that when you go and apply for a residence, you'd find that there are certain residences that are allocated to health students, to BEd students, and all those students, but we don't have a residence that we can call that these are SAICA accredited residents for us. So it will be great that if we were to have our own SAICA accredited residence. And also to close is that we would appreciate more visits from you and your team in the future. I think that's gonna help us, to motivate us as students to keep going. Thank you so much.
Kanya, uze nenye. CEO, in pure isiXhosa, amasabekwe elangeni. No, okay, I want to believe that it has landed on soft ears. Kuzawuzanywa man. We have people online, ladies and gentlemen, which I think we need to acknowledge. And I would like to encourage those people online to also be part of the competition, because you never know. You never know. Apa sizothetha kuthethwe nge-digital capital. We must exercise that. So the people who are online, we welcome you, we see you, and we thank you for joining us. And we also encourage that you become part of this competition And you never know, mhlambe I'll put in a good word for you and say, hi, bosai, cannot be one to go to someone who is online. But if you guys treat me well, I know people who know people. Madam CEO, it's almost your time, and I know that you are well prepared. However, in our culture, kuthiwa inkosi ikhatshwa imbongi. And in so doing, I'd like to call upon our head of department, Mr. Senzo Ndlangamandla, to introduce our guest speaker for today.
No. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been given an easy but also a tough task of introducing our keynote speaker for the day. But I think just before I move to that core business of my item, last week I attended a symposium at UNISA, and the matter that was being discussed was continuous auditing with artificial intelligence, which of course partly touches on what our guest speaker will be talking about today, digital capitals. And I was actually captured by an opening statement that one of the speakers in that symposium made. There was Prof. Bonang Mohale. And that statement actually comes from a title of a book written by a Canadian professor. Well, I found out after the conference when I read about it. It's written by, it's a Canadian professor in English and comparative literature. And the statement was, if this is your land, then where are your stories? You know, it made me to really think, you know, as the WUSU community or any other community, you know, if you really claim this is your institution, where are our stories? Are we really telling our stories, and how well are we telling our stories, if at all? Because if we don't, someone may, and they may not tell the accurate stories. So I would like to challenge all of us to really make it, you know, our own, task, whatever, to tell our stories. I think we've got really good stories that we can tell about ourselves, about what we do, about our institution. And also just looking at everything today here, colleagues, I'm also reminded of a scripture. I'm gonna touch on a part of it. It's in Romans 8. You know, I'll put it in isiZulu first. It says, konke kuyasebenzelana kube ngokuhle. And if I had to translate it to English, I hope I will get it right, but all things work for the good. Whether good or bad, but all things work for the good. I think some of the people that were behind the scenes in putting this together will know what I'm talking about. Colleagues, with that said, I have the honor to introduce Mrs. Patricia Stock, a dynamic CEO of SAICA, a strategic entrepreneurial accountant with a passion for transforming people and organizations. As the co-founder and former CEO of MGI RAS, a distinguished member firm of MGI Worldwide, she boasts diverse experience in talent management, ESG audit, quality assurance, and IFRS, with a master's in international accounting. a chartered accountant, SA, and a chartered director, SA, our speaker has left an indelible mark in various senior executive and non-executive directorship roles. Her journey spans both private and private sectors, advisory, skills development, and assurance, including auditing the United Nations organizations during her tenure at the Auditor General of South Africa. Notably, she served as the head of transformation in a global firm, showcasing her commitment to fostering positive change. Furthermore, her expertise extends to performance and leadership coaching, aligning with her passion of responsible growth in organizations and individuals. With a life motto, "Grow as I grow," our speaker is not just a CEO. She is a visionary leader dedicated to realizing the potential of others in a sustainable manner. Ladies and gentlemen, please me welcome to the podium Mrs. Patricia Stock, CEO of SAICA.
Senzo, thank you so much for that warm introduction. Can you hear me? Is it on? We can switch on this one. Is it on? Is it good? No. Not. Good. Difference maker, Senzo. Okay. Thank you, my darling. I'm gonna appreciate you the third time now. Difference maker, Senzo, thank you for that warm welcome introduction. And I would like to just add before I also go to the protocol, because we're humans in this room. Besides all the accolades and achievements that you've said, I'm also a child of God. I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a sister, and I'm a daughter. I stand on all protocol observed with a deep appreciation for this opportunity. Executive Dean, Deputy Deans, it is truly an honor to stand before you this morning and with our VIPs of the profession, the future of the profession that's in this room. I am deeply grateful for your presence this morning. And those online as well, we appreciate your time that you've taken, not only to come and listen, but to also engage, because in this lecture, we want to ensure that your voice is also heard. So once again, good morning. Molweni. Dumelang. Abshen. Ndimacheroni. Ndimacheroni. Okay. Enkos. Program Director, thank you for reminding us that we are celebrating Africa Month This morning, a beautiful province of the place of birth of our former president and the late Tatu Madiba, and the former president Tatu Thabo Mbeki, I am reminded that I am an African. In the words of Tatu Mbeki, I owe my beings to the hills and valleys, the mountains and the glades, the rivers, the deserts, trees, and the flowers. This citation is powerful, not only for its lyrical beauty, but for its deep resonance with the African identity, our connection to land, and our duty to protect and uplift our continent. It sets the tone for our conversation on sustainable development and human-led innovation. And this innovation needs to come through intentional convergence of nature capital, human capital, and digital capital. So we transition from heritage to leadership. Our heritage is not only a reminder of where we come from, but a call to leadership. Leadership that is grounded in ethics, resilience, and transformation. We have a responsibility to lead Africa's development journey, which brings us to the identity and the reality of our starting point. Our starting point, I want us to reflect on South Africa's economic landscape. And this reflection is really to provoke within you, and I'm glad that the future of our profession is in this room. And as I speak, I want to encourage you to really find yourself as to where do you see yourself being part of the solution to the challenges that we're faced with, not only in South Africa, but also in Africa and the entire world. Because our profession, it is a global profession. So those of you who do follow the economic updates and the news, you will know that currently we stand at an unemployment rate of 32.9% in South Africa. And youth unemployment remains alarmingly high. If you look at an expanded unemployment rate, actually it increased to 43.1%. And we've seen recently that employed persons have decreased by 291,000. And the unemployed persons as well, they've increased by 237,000. Labor force has also decreased by 54,000. And those of you who like economics, already you can see which direction we are taking as a country. If I then look at the population that is not economically active, so those that are looking for employment or are in education, such as yourselves, or in training, we see that the rate of young people aged between 15 and 24, it stood at 37.1%. And for young women, it is just slightly higher at 37.5%. Infrastructure, which is a key enabler to economic development, we see that it is actually at a deficit stage. And this actually has got a great impact on our development. And unfortunately, with a recent review, even with the IMF, we see that we have subdued economic growth that stands at 1.2% forecast for 2025. So these figures, you will agree with me, they reflect not just economic stagnation, but lost potential. I'm a strong believer that as South Africa, we are rich with potential. Therefore, this demands more than reform. It demands that we actually reimagine as South Africans and as Africans. And reimagination cannot happen in isolation. It must begin with an honest reflection on persistent inequality. When we look at persistent inequality, there is a measure that is used, which is the Gini coefficient. Currently, South Africa, we're sitting at 0.67. So the lower it is, it means that as a country, you actually have got less inequality. So the higher it goes, so it's measured between 0 and 1, right? So if it goes towards 1, it means your inequality is on the higher side. So South Africa, we're sitting at 0.67, which means that we remain one of the most unequal societies. Service delivery challenges remain prevalent, but also we have pockets of excellence that we can build on. These pockets of excellence, we see them in sectors such as in the finance sector, and that speaks to the fact that we do have access to capital as a country. And the fact that we need to ensure that the entire ecosystem works so that we can allocate capital to the areas that it can actually enable us to get the right returns and get the economic development going in the right direction. So these disparities call us to adopt an inclusive model of growth. I can argue, and I want to argue, that the inclusion is more agent than in unlocking the demographic dividend of Africa's youth. So when we look at the Africa's youth, we see that actually as Africa, we are sitting with the people capital. The people capital, I refer to it as a balance sheet. And the largest part of that balance sheet is sitting with our youth. Our balance sheet is actually equity in waiting. The equity that we need to grow with intentionality. So Africa's youth is actually projected to grow at a much higher rapid rate. According to the OECD report as well, we see that they're actually projecting that 375 million young people will enter the workforce by 2030. However, the challenge we see currently is that we are sitting with 60% of the youth being unemployed or underemployed. Then the question is, will we be ready as a country? If we invest wisely in skills and entrepreneurship, we will certainly unlock a generation of builders and innovators. And I want to challenge you in this room. As much as you're part of the youth, you are not part of the problem. You are part of the solution. And these aspirations that we have, we acknowledge that they exist within a volatile global landscape. So with that said, I want to reflect on some of the global trends that we are not immune to as South Africa, because we are also faced with the same challenges. So to reflect on some of these, we know that geopolitical uncertainty is very close to our home. Not only South Africa, to our continent, and also globally. I'm sure you would have seen what makes global headlines currently, the issues around, for example, the tariffs that has impacted a lot of economies, the US tariffs for that matter. Climate change is also one of the key trends that are impacting us globally. We see that the reindustrialization and technological transformation are reshaping economies. We need to ensure that in South Africa, we build supply chain resilience by strengthening supply chains to withstand disruptions as and when they come. And in this room, we're sitting with accountants that are going to be part of shaping the supply chain landscape. As Africa, we need to be agile. We need to be resilient. And we Fourth industrial revolution, because it's one area that we're still talking about the most. But obviously, to get to the fourth, we've seen the journey from the first to the fourth. So I could safely say all of us probably in this room were not there in the first industrial revolution, right? So since the first industrial revolution, we have moved from steam to electricity, from computers to cyber physical systems. Today, we enter the 5IR, a human-centric era where empathy, ethics, and technology, they interact. South Africa, we have to move beyond policy draft, right? I was interrupted by a camera then. So in South Africa, we have to move beyond policy draft to implementation, and implementation with the right speed. But to truly benefit from the 5IR, it must be given and it must be driven by the values and ethics that we must uphold. When we talk about upholding ethics, we know that people and humans are at the center of it. So technology, as we develop it, it has to serve people. It must be guided by human needs. It should not replace people. We have to coexist with technology and its advancement. Ethics in AI will actually ensure dignity, accessibility, and inclusion. This is our opportunity, especially as an accountancy profession, to ensure that we can stand for integrity, we can ensure that we shape the technology that actually works for humanity. In this journey of digital and AI transformation, I want to reassure you that we are not alone. It is a global movement. It is a global impact. And if you're not doing anything in this space, if you are not embracing it, you don't want to be left behind. I encourage you to ensure that even if it's not covered in the classroom, but have an inquiring mind. Find other ways to continue to learn, because we're in the age where there is so much information that is available to us, right? So ensure that you do invest in the spaces beyond the classroom. I myself, I'm a scholar of AI at this point in time. I'm still completing my diploma for AI for leadership. So let us look globally at who is doing what, especially in this space, right? So if we look at some comparisons and if we look at what other countries are doing, South Korea is definitely leading and moving. This is anecdotal in my opinion. They're actually advancing smart cities. In fact, my son's the baby. His dream is to go to South Korea one day because of the tech. So the kids as well, at least they are helping us to also keep up in terms of what is happening. This is our 10-year-old baby, by the way. The EU is setting global norms for ethical AI. The US is investing in frontier tech. South Africa, we must be bold, not be reactive. We are seeing some advancements coming through in other parts of our industries, especially in the tech space. Let us build capacity, South Africa. Let us move from intention, but rather move to innovation. This is actually urgent, given the magnitude of the challenges that we face. So some of the key challenges I want to, just to remind you of the challenges. Inequality, unemployment, climate threats, fragile infrastructure, and a widening digital divide. These cannot be solved with old tools. We need a new paradigm. Thankfully, we are not starting from scratch. Africa has opportunities that can be unlocked through a coordinated action. And especially if we look at the African lens, right? We should not look at our problems and think we can solve them by ourselves. as Africa, if we can collaborate and integrate, we're able to actually move at a far much quicker pace. So with that said, what are the opportunities available to us as Africans, as a collective? We have the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. So this is an agreement that enables us as Africa, to find ways to go beyond the barriers of legislative barriers to entry, to go beyond the red tapes that are there that actually do not enable us to have an intercontinental trade. What is encouraging is to see that with the global trade from Africa, that currently we're sitting at, with the last statistics that I checked, 15% that is intertrade within Africa. It is an encouraging move. However, you'll agree with me that there is great potential for us to collaborate even better as Africa. So this agreement offers us a platform for a trade-led growth. Green energy, both a solution to power crisis and climate action. If we think we've got power challenges in South Africa, you must look at it broadly in Africa. We still have large communities within Africa that do not have enough supply of energy. Digital transformation can empower SMEs. SMEs are the largest contributors towards solving for the social challenges and challenges of unemployment. And I should not leave out the youth, that you are key to addressing the challenges that we face with, especially the digital transformation itself. As a accountancy profession, I want to remind even those that are listening and yourselves in the room, because you are part of this profession. We need to align our priorities in terms of what we focus on. And as SAICA, I want to reassure you that in terms of our strategic priorities, we have certainly aligned and made an intentional link to ensure that we enable social economic relevance through the profession, whilst we're emphasizing capacity building, not just in all the areas that where we can invest in, but in also ensuring that we can look at areas where there are opportune, significant gains that we can make, so that we can also be part of the solution to addressing these challenges. And Kanya, I heard you. I'm looking for Kanya, there you go. At Nduville, ne? Because if we do not acknowledge, the first step to coming up with solutions is acknowledging the challenge and the problem, right? So Nduville, Kanya. And in our strategy as well, whatever we do, we focus on ensuring that we build public interest and trust. So one of the ways we've already seen is a transformation in the practical application of AI solutions. And as SAICA, I want to also state that we are also investing in ensuring that we've got the right digital solutions to enable AI applications within the institute. But besides SAICA, in South Africa, there are other institutions that have actually have done the right investments in AI. And this is to encourage us to the fact that, yes, there are challenges, but also even as a country, we are also seeing investments in the right direction. So some of the use cases, especially in AI, you'll hear a lot about the terminology use case. The use case is basically just looking at the practical example of where a specific solution was applied, especially in AI. So in ESCOM, yes, ESCOM, we're using AI for grid management in some of the areas, and not necessarily in the entire ESCOM. IBM was one of the companies that has also have brought in solutions, especially in relation to water efficiencies within South Africa. And these are actually homegrown examples that actually shows us that where there is a will to innovate, it is possible, right? However, these models, you must agree with me that they have to be scaled. We need to ensure that we can scale up these models, right? And in all of these, actually, why am I saying that we need to scale up? Because when we look at the global trends, we can actually see that the significant investment that is made in ESG, it is showing that there is a move towards ESG related kind of investments. Why is it important for us as a profession? Because as a profession, whatever we do, whether it's in advisory or whether it's in assurance, as when you're gonna go audit, you need to ensure that you can enable organizations that you serve to be able to have access to capital. But not only in the private sector, but even our public sector. If we want to get any form of funding as a country, we need to ensure that we are actually ready for the capital providers to actually find us suitable to provide us with access to capital. So we are seeing that actually some of the capital providers like the IMF, they've started to actually integrate in their requirements, conditions in relation to sustainability related factors. So as a profession, we have the responsibility to ensure that we can enable access to capital. So the global ESG funds, currently they actually exceed $30 trillion, and it is actually predicted that it will actually surpass the $40 trillion by 2030. This is a significant amount, right? Africa must position itself as a trustworthy partner. We do this as a profession, as I said, through assurance, providing credible reporting, and I'm not talking about just numbers only, reporting as well, bringing non-financial reporting elements and making sure that the story behind the numbers. So that's how we talk about the story behind the numbers. Because as a profession, we are able to then say, this is how you've allocated your capital. However, what impact are you making to the environment, to the society, and then also when we look at the human capital element as well. And as a profession, we also have a key responsibility to play to ensure that there is transparency, right? So as accountants, we have a responsibility to account in leading. At the heart of it, the question remains, are we putting people first in all of these investments that we are making? So when we look at human-centric AI, yes, it is important that we must leverage on technology, but it must never be at the expense of people. We have to be intentional to ensure that we eliminate bias. Our profession is an ethical profession, but have you paused and asked yourself, who's actually developing these AI solutions? And where is the profession to ensure that whatever solutions that are there, when it comes to ethics, there is no bias, they can be trusted, the data that comes through, it's reliable. As a profession, we have to be part of the co-creators of the solutions that are coming through. So some of the things, as I said, we have to eliminate bias and ensure that there's inclusivity and prioritize the dignity. And key to this is that the profession, we must be custodians to ensure that the sustainable development, which must be preceded by human development. We must ensure that we can prevent algorithm bias. But to be able to prevent that, you need to understand what informs the algorithms that are built. Not that we must all become coders, right? But at least we need to understand something about AI. We need to be the forefront to ensure that, whatever it's built, it ensures inclusion and accessibility, and it prioritizes dignity and well-being of people. So one of the ways that this is happening, I actually also did some research to look at ways it's happening. So in the human capital space, especially around recruitment, you will see that when you start to look for a job, some of the organizations are going to say, go to this platform, apply, and within an hour you even get feedback whether it's successful or not, because someone have built solutions to ensure that you can apply, and the application itself will actually screen, make a determination whether you meet the requirements. And these are the things that actually human beings, they apply currently. So how do we ensure that the solutions that are there, that they remain reliable? So in the research, I found one of the companies, Pymetrics. So it is said that they're removing hiring bias in their solutions. I'm saying it is said because I haven't tried the platform itself. AI solutions must prioritize fairness and diversity. So the systems themselves must be governed and not left to a chance. And that's where, even as a profession, we need to be there. When you're going to go audit how many of you have already done the cycle for employee cost cycle? for audit in the audit module. Right. Okay. So when you get to do your employee cost cycle, as to how you're going to audit payroll and whether people exist or not. So when you're going to go start at the starting point, right? When you look at the recruitment part of it. So these are the things you're going to have to look at as well to say, but is the system doing what it's supposed to do, right? So ensure that you also have an inquiring mind and just really find out what are the solutions out there. So let us now turn to broader policy framework that enables economic mobility. So again, I want to go back to the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, right? So the African Export and Import Bank, actually what they have found in their study is that you know, the intertrade in Africa has already grown to 192 billion, right, which is good. But to unleash our full potential, we must reduce regulatory and logistical costs. So furthermore, according to COMESA and the World Bank, actually what they found that the trade agreement itself, it's got a potential to increase our trade by 52% and create over 10 million new jobs and enable regional mobility and integration through mutual recognition agreements. And this is part and parcel of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. Why am I emphasizing this? Because we need to be proudly Africans. And I'm sure some of you are aspiring to go work in, you know, maybe outside of the country, although we encourage that, let us build our country first. And then in so doing, we also build our continent. But I also encourage you that find opportunities within the continent, within our continent as well. Because there are opportunities, and even in South Africa, we have an opportunity to also contribute to the broader development of Africa. So one of the key enablers is the global recognition of skills. And at SAICA, we already have that practice of the mutual recognition agreement. We've got a couple of countries in Europe, America, where, and even within Africa, which is very important, where we've got mutual recognition that as a chartered accountant, you know, when you move to another country, you then get recognized, you know, to work in other countries as well. It's not all the countries, it's in a couple of countries that we have. Right. So as SAICA, and we also have a privilege as SAICA that in other PAOs, we call it PAOs, professional accountancy organizations. As we have led the way in the MRA space, so as part of the G20, we were actually also requested to also do a paper in relation to how globally we can actually get mutual recognition of qualification to ensure that we can enable human mobility. And currently our call to the G20 is to institutionalize global mobility frameworks, because these are key to ensuring that we can attain equality. Equality is important to ensure that we've got the right ethical frameworks that guides all the work that we do. With the point of ethics, I'm sure you've heard me talk about ethics a couple of times, because our profession is centered on that. It's front and center of everything that we do as a profession. It's one thing that is zero tolerance when it comes to ethical conduct. So zero tolerance to unethical conduct, because we stand for integrity. What is lovely is that with all of this said, we do already as a profession have guiding, you know, principles, especially when you look at the ISBA Code of Ethics that we apply. And I'm sure a lot of you in the room have already learned about those principles, right? And it's not just about learning about them, but also it's about applying them in your daily lives, right? Because as human beings, we need to be consistent in our behavior, regardless where we find ourselves. So these principles, I want to just remember, it's the integrity, objectivity, professional competence, confidentiality, and professional behavior. You'll agree with me that in everything that we spoke about so far, I mean, for example, confidentiality, especially when it comes to AI. Now, if you're gonna take client data and put it on a platform, AI platform, you know, you need to think about what is it that you're throwing into the space, because it will be accessible one way or the other, right? We must actually ensure that as a profession, we translate these principles into this digital era, so that AI and automation can serve humanity, not for profit alone, but also to ensure that we keep the public trust. And this aligns with the kind of profession that we must develop, and yourselves in the room, even when we invest in the future skills. So according to the World Economic Forum, which they do a study, and the last one they did was now in 2025, they've actually done a study that says, look, we know what are the future skills that are needed in the future. And I argue as well that it's the skills that we actually need now. They actually identified a list of skills, and I want to highlight some of them. We know that analytical thinking, AI fluency, and the resilience are core skills that have been identified. And if you look at the comparison with the framework that we're applying, the SAICA framework for accountants of the future, you will see that we've already embedded these skills in there. So I want you to remember, I said that don't listen to this lecture from just a lot of data that I'm bringing here, but find your relevance, because it's a conversation of today that prepares you for the roles that you have to play in the future. So we are preparing our members not just for work, but for impact. That's very, very important, that you must remember that you are being prepared to make a global impact. So let us take a step back and see how the profession has evolved, right? We have moved from number crunchers to strategic advisors, from compliance to value creation, with a focus on sustainability, digitalization, and assurance, which are core to our current and future mandates. And that mandate includes enabling national priorities to ensure just transitions. And I was encouraged to hear the emphasis on the just transitions. So with these just transitions, and some of the challenges I spoke to, I mentioned, for example, a challenge in relation to infrastructure. Manufacturing, they go hand in hand, right? And just transition as well. I mean, for example, in South Africa, we know that with this global move around sustainability and climate-related actions that the world is taking, South Africa, and I argue that even other African countries, that we're faced with the challenge of when can we truly transition towards, implementing the climate-related actions that have been committed to globally. I'll make an example with Eskom. We know Eskom it uses different sources of power, right? It's not only coal. Very diverse, We've got hydro plants, which uses water. We've got, they use IPPs and independent power producers. They all have different power supplies. So some is